So it's lesson 5. We've got our form now loading. Once I put my password back. So we can now edit an item, but when we save, it's still inserting. So just before we clean that up, I'm going to add Bootstrap to my form as well to clean it up. And we can also use Bootstrap to align things. Notice all our inputs just kind of appear beside our labels, but the labels are different widths. So we can use Bootstrap so that things kind of get aligned nicely. So I'm going to go to my item details, scroll up into the header, and I'm going to add Bootstrap. So our href is our CSS bootstrap.min.css. You could also just copy this line directly from the items page if you like. And you'll notice as soon as I add the form, add the style sheet, if I refresh in the browser, the font will change at least. We'll notice a few changes. So it looks more bootstrappy, but it's not very nicely aligned. So I'm going to use Bootstrap's grid system so I can space these things so all my labels are the same width and everything aligns. We can also style the button a bit. So the first thing I'm going to do is on my field set tags, I'm going to use a class that comes with Bootstrap called row. So I'm going to add that class definition to all of my field sets. Not sure if we'll really notice a difference yet. Oh, yeah, we do, right? It makes them... No, actually, I don't think I want that because now it wraps. Sorry, I'm going to take that out. But in our label, we can use a class. So Bootstrap has a column system that a page can be 12 columns wide, and it can also scale for different device sizes. So if I use col-2, I want to make all the labels 2 columns wide. So this has a preset kind of percentage width, so it's going to be 1/6. So that's going to make all the labels the same width, which will then nicely left align our input boxes by adding class equals col2 on all the labels. Right? So now they're nicely spaced. I want to add a little bit of padding to my field sets. So instead of using class equals row, it occurred to me what class I want on the field sets instead. We'll try this. We'll try class equals form. Oh, does it not have form group anymore? We're using Bootstrap 5. Okay, I'll maybe have to leave that for now. Okay. And then our save button I want to style. I also want to move it over here. And then I want to add a little bit of padding to the whole page so it's not squished against the left side of the screen. So on my button, we'll give it a class of offset2. So add 2 columns to the left of it. And then we also want to style it as a primary button. We'll try this. So this should move our button over and also change it from a gray button with black text, right? So it puts it over here. And now if I want to move, kind of add a little padding to this whole thing, I can do that. That's the last change I'll make here. So inside of the body, I'm going to add a main tag, and I'll give it a class of container. This is a Bootstrap class that'll add a little bit of padding. So I'm going to move everything inside of the main, everything inside the body, our whole form, can go inside. Our form and our H1 tag. So the main now includes our heading as well as the entire form. And I think I forgot to disconnect in here, so I should probably add that. Inside our PHP, I should be disconnecting, which I forgot to do. Okay, I think now our form is done. So we've got a little padding. Our boxes are aligned. We've got a blue save button. If you miss something, don't worry. That's just formatting. Everything will be on GitHub when we're done. There's one more item we need here. When we look at our form, when we're editing, it includes the name value, which is good. It includes the quantity value, which we can change. And we can select one of the categories. So this all works fine when we're adding a new record, but when we're updating an existing record, there's one other value that our form needs that it doesn't have right now. What other value do we need when we're going to save an update besides the name, the quantity, and the category ID? So if I go to edit this record, right, I click on Tofu. When I go to edit it, I can modify this. Can change the quantity. But what other value do we need in order to update this record on the next page? The name, the quantity, the category. We're missing one thing in our form. What are we missing? Right, we need the idea. We can't add vertical padding. Off the top of my head with Bootstrap 5, I'll have to look up how to do it. So I'm going to leave that out for now. So we've got we can use the same button, but Christopher's right. We need the item ID's got to get included. Because when we go to the next page, we will have lost the ID. So we want to embed this ID in our form. We don't want users to see it though, but it should be included when we hit save. So we're going to add one more thing into the form. We're going to add an input with a type of hidden. We'll call it item ID. And we'll put our ID from the URL in here. So the users won't see this value, but it's going to get embedded in the form. I may have to initialize it to null at the top. I'm not sure. we'll see. So now if I refresh and view the page source, notice it takes the ID from the URL and embeds it in our form. If I'm adding a new record, we don't have an item ID, and that's okay. So in this case, when we view the source, we don't have any ID. So we need this hidden input. We need the ID included in the form when we're editing. Now we can open up our save item page, and we need to add the logic to determine if we're inserting or if we're updating. So I'll open up save item. And I'm going to add one more parameter here. So we're going to read the item ID from our form. So this is a hidden field. It's blank when adding. Has value when editing. So then all our validation can run. We want to check the name. We want to check the quantity. All of these validation rules still apply, regardless of whether we're inserting or updating. We can leave that stuff alone. If our form is okay, we can connect to the database. But now we need some logic here. We only want to insert if we don't have an item ID. So this statement needs to go in an if statement. So I'll just indent it. Update my comments. So we'll say if empty. Right, if our item ID is empty, we're going to do an insert. Otherwise, we need to write a completely different SQL command. We need to update the items table. Have you guys done updates with Darcy yet? Or is that new, the syntax? Oh, you did it last semester? Okay. So we're going to set name. So our structure for an update is different. With insert, we list all the columns first and all the values after. With update, we do it one field at a time. Quantity is equal to quantity. And then we need our where clause, just like we did in our delete. We don't want to update all the records in the database. We just want to update one. And we're going to use our item ID parameter. So now we've got two different SQL commands that might run. When we have no ID, the user is creating a new item in the grocery list. So we're going to do an insert. If we have an item ID, then we're editing an existing item in the list. So we want to run an update with a where clause. And we always want to make sure we use a where clause because we don't want to update all the items. I have done this in a hurry, run an update on a customer's e-commerce site before. I updated all the prices for 700 products to the same price because I was in a hurry and I didn't write a where clause. That was really fun. I then had to go restore from yesterday's database, and I lost a whole day's worth of my customer data. They were super happy. We then need the same logic. If we're updating, we also now need to bind the item ID parameter because the update can't run if we don't give it an ID. So we'll say if not empty item ID, we need to bind the item ID parameter. Same way we've done in our delete. Actually, both of the last two pages. And I'll just change the comment. So now our page should be able, we'll have to try it out, we should be able to both insert when we have no ID and update when we do have an ID. I'll put all the code up. Actually, I won't put it up on Pastebin yet because I want to try it out and make sure it works. We may have to make a couple little tweaks to it. Okay, so we've got some logic that decides, are we inserting or are we updating? And when we're updating, we need this extra parameter. So let's go and try this out. So I'm going to go back. Well, actually, let me go back here. So I'm going to change my lobster. I'm going to edit. I'll change that to crab. And I'll change the quantity from 3 to 2. We'll see if my update works. It says saved. We'll want to add a redirect in here as well with header location in a minute. So now when I refresh, okay, so update works. This said lobster in 3. Now it says crab in 2. That's good. What happens if I go to add something new? So I want to add, I don't know, tuna steaks, 2 of those, under seafood. Okay, that's good. And now when I go back, okay. So it's working the way we intended. When we have no ID, it inserts. When we have an ID, it updates. So I'm just going to add one more thing here instead of just showing confirmation. Okay, Ivan, you need to initialize. You may need this. You may need to initialize these values to null, all of them, because we're printing them out in the form. So make sure you initialize all the values we're inserting into the form, initialize them to null. So now I'm going to put my redirect in. I'll comment out the message and I'll use header location. So anytime we save an insert or an update, after that save is done, it's going to take us back to the list. So if I go and edit, so I want 5 tomatoes, it should be in produce. So now it just takes me here. So now we can add, we can read, we can update, and we can delete. We can do all the CRUD operations. We can manage this list and make any changes to the list that we want. So we're going to do 2 more very small changes to this page, and then we are done. I'll put everything up from the save page on Pastebin now, in case you missed it. First thing I'm going to do here is pretty simple. Second one's a little more complex. We should be done in a few minutes. I want to put a link at the top here to add a new item. Right now we have no way to get there. So on my items.php, right inside our body, I'm going to put in an H1, first of all, that says grocery list. And then I'm just going to add a simple link that goes to item details that says add an item. So that just goes right inside the body tag above the HTML table we have. So when I refresh, I have a heading, and now I've got a link here that we can go to the item page to add a new item. The one other thing I want to do is I want to show the category, which we don't have. We're storing it in the database. We can see the category when we go to edit, but we can't organize our grocery list by a certain area of the grocery store, which we want to do. So we're going to modify this query a little to connect the items table and the categories table. You guys may have done this already in your database class. I'm kind of assuming you have by now. You've joined 2 tables together using a foreign key. Is that right? Is that something you've done? You've done it? Okay, good. So on items, okay, great. Let's just change this a little bit. We're going to change the query to select items.star and categories .name from items, and we're going to do an inner join. Actually, I don't want an inner join because right now a bunch of the first items I put in, they have no categories. So I actually want an outer join. I want to get all the items even when they have no category. So you may not have done this yet, right? Outer join categories on items dot. So we want to fetch all the items, even the ones that we didn't attach a category to. We'll just try it this way. Okay, not right. I gotta write this word. That would help. I'm an idiot. Sorry. Yes, I missed the word join, of course. Thank you. I think it is a right outer join because we want the child records even when you don't have, thank you, Ivan. Yes, I did. Thank you, Adil and Ivan. I want all the child items even when there is no related parent. So now we need to fix this up a little bit. I'll put in an alias here as category. Sorry. Okay. I want a left outer join. I apologize, folks. Thanks for your patience. Here's the query. So now in my heading, I'm going to add one more heading here. Actually, I'll put the category even first. So we'll put the category first. Yep, it always is. And I'll put in a new column first. So TD So this should print the category name in the first column. And then our item name becomes the second column. So it might be null, but now I can see which ones I need to update. So all of these items I put in the database before we had our categories. You can, Chris, yeah, but I think you'd have to do it this way. I think if you do it this way, I think that will work. Let me see if that does it. No. So Chris, there may be a way to do it, but that would have been what I would have thought would have been the easiest way. So we were probably best to use an alias, at least for now. We may come up with another solution we can look at. So now I can go ahead and edit. I can update. Oh, I like veggie burgers, so those are in the produce section, right? I could just add more categories here as well. So now we can add, edit, delete, and read. So now we've got a kind of a complete little grocery list. So now when I go into any item, it shows me the category correctly. Right? I can update something, saves. So everything's working the way we want it to now. So I aliased the category name and then printed that out in the first column of the table. I want the category first because we'll add some functionality later on where we can sort this or filter it, but not today. I know we did a lot today, I tried not to go too fast. I'm sorry if I did. I'm going to upload everything up to GitHub now. I'll upload the recordings to YouTube in a bit. So no class next week. You do still have a review quiz. So on today's lesson, so you can find the quiz just to show you there's no lesson 6 folder because of reading week. So you actually have 2 weeks to do your quiz. You just have to do it before Monday. So in the lesson 7 folder, there is the lesson 5 quiz, okay? But it isn't due until February 22nd. And then we'll do our midterm in class on the 23rd. Okay? So if you do need help, I do have office hours appointments this week. I have some availability next week as well. If you're all good, then have a great reading week, and I'll see you in 2 weeks. I will push all my code up to GitHub now. I'm just going to take out my passwords.